Everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking over Mythic Stone Legion Generals. I've had a couple requests for this. So I just want to talk a little bit about the fight first before we kind of get into how to use cooldowns and such. Um, this fight will really change depending on your guild and your group comp. So originally I was using Vile Taint and Dark Caller when we were doing progress, and I found that our group had way too much AoE, and we didn't have enough boss damage or Goliath damage. So my talent setup is a lot different than stuff you'll see on Warcraft logs. It's way more single target focused. You'll even see some parses with Siphon Life being used, where it's like full single target. I found Siphon Life is pretty annoying to use, and um, I think Absolute Corruption is just way better in all scenarios. It just allows you to focus more on the boss while also doing added damage when you need to. So we'll talk about talents real quick. Drained Soul, always. Absolute Corruption. Um, I think it's just way easier to manage on this fight rather than having to dot, you know, 4 or 5 targets at Siphon Life. Um, I use Dark Pact because I'm always going to be soaking. So if you are a soaker for the impacts later on in the fight, Dark Pact is really useful because sometimes there may be winds, sometimes your healers may be out of range, and you need to get your soak. And if you're further away, you could die. And so I found that Dark Pact is really helpful when we use it during prog. Um, Next, I use Phantom Singularity. I use this mainly just for the pure single target damage, whether it's on the Goliath or the boss. Most of the time I'll be using it on the boss. You'll see a lot of people use Vile Taint, which is more commando priority and skirmisher priority. But like I said earlier, my group has so much AoE that I found that it was not necessary. So I pretty much just kind of push the bosses at specific times and the Goliaths when we need to. I'm using Moral Coil just for the extra heal, and Haunt for more single target, and Dark Soul. So getting into the fight here, my trinkets are the PvP Haze Trinket, the Insignia, and I'm also using a Ruby. So we're going to play this at 20% speed, just because it's a really long fight. So just open on the boss, normal single target rotation here. I save my Dark Soul for when the ads spawn. So I dot up the Goliath here, and then as soon as the ads spawn, I pop my Dark Soul. And I agony all of them. And so while this is happening, I'm single targeting the boss. So I'm going to cast my Soul Rod on the boss, my Phantom Singularity, and I'm going to keep my Shadow's Embrace stacks up on the boss. So you can see I popped everything here. And I'm just targeting the boss. So basically we're pushing the boss to about 60% here before the next set of ads. And the reason why you want to do it at 60% for is because she pushes at 50. And you want to have the Goliath really low the time she pushes. But you also want to have a skirmisher set kind of dead so you don't get a weird overlap. So that's kind of how we did it. So I'm agonying all the ads here. Boss is almost at 60%, just hit 60, and then I'm swapping. And I'm pretty much just dotting all the ads. I use my Phantom Singularity on the Goliath here, so it hits all the ads and the boss, so I get maximum cleave for it. Once the skirmisher is dead, this is where we push the boss to 50%, and then we kill the Goliath. And we do this because you get an extra blood orb if you push the boss first and then kill the Goliath. So you can see we get a blood soak there, and our Demon Hunter is running over to put it in. As you can see my gateway here, I pretty much put it right next to the group, leading right in front of the place where you have to drop off the orbs. And that's a really important gateway to have, so that way you can keep the soaks going really quickly. If people have to manually like run out and then run back or get knocked back in, it takes a really long time, and the gateway just makes it much easier. And most of the time you'll have your melee or really mobile classes do it. So if you're like a ranged, I usually just stayed away, just so I didn't have to deal with that. Let the melee kind of do that. So get a blades here, move it out, and we're single targeting this Goliath pretty much the whole time here. We're waiting for all the commandos to stack up. So we only got one here. Our second one just spawned. So we're trying to wait for the third one, so that way we can kind of just AoE them all down at once. Because at 20%, the commandos have a shield, and you have to burst the shield before they blow up, because if they blow up, you pretty much wipe. So just got the glide to 40%, and so we kind of like slow DPS until they're all grouped up here, because you don't want to have the healing debuff from the Goliath while everything's happening. So we kind of just want to get everything around 30-ish% and then burst it all, because the commandos transition at 20% is when they start to explode. So as you can see, we just kind of burst everything down there, and then we're just single targeting commandos as we need to. You can see in the top left, the weak aura that I have, where it's like little squares, shows how many orbs you have and how many are left, basically. And so as you can see, we have about 5 orbs left till we transition. So it's filled in orange because 5 people have the orbs. So those people are going to go in order and just kind of dunk them in. And we're going to wait for them to dunk, so that's why we're all just kind of standing here, not really doing anything. And when we get to our last person, we all run to the corner. So as you can see, as we're transitioning here, I get blades. So this is a spot where you really want to have kind of mobility. I used my Night Fae Blink earlier, unfortunately. But you kind of want to run out of the group, have the blades hit, and then get back to the corner without cleaving anyone. And you want to make it there before the knockback happens. So I got hit, and I'm going back into the corner, and we're dunking. And so everyone gets knocked back. I use my wall pretty much all the time here, but especially in this case because I have 2 bleeds, since I got 2 of the blade soaks during the intermission. So it's really important to keep yourself alive if you do have bleed stacks during transitions. Pretty much whenever you have more than 1 stack of the bleed, you should be using your unending resolve. So here is when I pop my second set of cooldowns. As you can see, my dark layer is about 4 seconds away, so here I am, I'm setting up on all the targets. The Goliath just spawned. I'm getting all my stacks and dots on the boss, and then I'm going to pop my Dark Soul, dot up the Goliath, Soul Rot, Phantom Singularity, Dark Glare, everything on the boss here. So I'm dotting up the Goliath. So I wait to pop my Dark Glare till after this soak, usually. Mainly because most of the time you're usually going to have 1 stack just from the ads jumping around. So it's important to kind of wait till you have to soak before you pop your Dark Glare and go into your Soul Rot and Rapture window. Or else you'd just be losing DPS time here. So I made a mistake here, popping my Dark Soul a little bit too early, but it doesn't really matter since I get all of my Raptures out pretty much in the same time window anyways, but just for a little min-max there. So after all those ads are dead, you're going to stack up in the middle, and the boss is going to have you move because he's going to have the eruptions. So in general, you want to move together as a group to the right, and during this time, you want to have the Goliath around 30%, so that way it doesn't jump around and kill anyone with the feast. So at this point, I am fully targeting the Goliath to try to get to 30%, and we want to kill it as soon as we can, basically. So get to 30%, it's not going to jump around anymore, and I'm still just targeting it as we can. So as you can see, I have a little arrow that shows that I went to go left, and that's just a weak aura, that package that I have. Basically, I didn't get an eruption on me, so I'm free to cast. So when you do have that option, definitely focus on your priority targets. In this case, it would be the Goliath. So killing the Goliath, ignoring the skirmishers for now, and then I'm agonying all of them. So I use Seed on the boss to spread corruption onto all of the skirmishers here. And so during this time, you definitely want to have dots on the skirmishers, but you should definitely still be single targeting the boss if you're using this talent build. And I say that because you want the boss to be somewhat low before your next transition, or you get like really weird overlaps where you may have winds, or you might have the seismic upheavals happening while you're trying to soak, and while you're having ads and stuff, and it's just a mess. So that's why I'm kind of just single targeting the boss here. You can see I'm using my raptures, using my shards here to try to get like that extra boss damage in. So this time we ended up getting the upheaval, so we're having a run. You can see, dodge it all. It's really helpful if your group has roars and wind furies. So as you can see, we have a ton of druids here and a shaman, so we have a lot of movement speed. That's kind of why I chose. I say like you don't really need to have burning rush in this fight, because a lot of times if you have group wide speed buffs, you don't really need burning rush. So I'm DPSing the boss here till about 60%, and then I'm gonna swap to all the ads. So the ads are dying. So this is like one of those weird overlaps I was kind of talking about. And it's better to have it now than in the transition, but we're having wins with the upheaval. And basically if you cleave the ads too much, the skirmishers, then this is kind of what's going to happen. But we're kind of burning them as fast as we can, and then we're going to push the boss, push the Goliath all at once. So we're dealing with this wins because we have roars available, and so we're able to like, kind of just survive through the movement speed buff of it. So yeah, the skirmishers are dying here. The Goliath's already pushed, and so the boss is going to be pushed here, 50%. You can see I'm really low. I don't have my wall up. I can't really healthstone because the healing debuff, so that's why it's like really important to have the Goliath kind of really close to dead at this point. Luckily, I got a spirit link here, saved me. So I got in because I had 2 stacks to bleed. And so this next transition is there's going to be a Goliath that you can focus pretty much the whole time. The commandos are going to come out one by one. I will dot the commandos, but I'm pretty much just going to be bursting as much as I can into the Goliath. You want it to die pretty much ASAP. I'm also going to be moving my gateway from the left side to the right side, so pretty much just moving it on over right into the prince so that you can gateway the orbs into the prince there. So you can see I'm dotting the Goliath. I remove my gateway. In this kill, I am soaking Moon, so right behind me. This is where I'm going to put my demonic circle, so you definitely want to have your demonic circle wherever you're soaking. So I'm just DPSing the Goliath here, putting my circle down. So I'm going to be dotting up the commandos, but I'm pretty much just going to be single targeting the Goliath here. And depending on your group, you may or may not need to use cooldowns here. You may not need to use your soul rot, depending on how fast you can kill the commandos and how fast you can kill the Goliath. I found that with my group, I'd never really need to pop my soul rot. So what I would do is I'd have my haunt. I just fully single target the Goliath, pop my Phantom Singularity when it came up, and would rapture. And that was just enough to kill all the commandos and the Goliath. So you can see I pop my Phantom Singularity, I'm rapturing, and pretty much everything's dead already. So when we had the Wicked Blades during this phase, we always went to the statue. I'm not sure if other groups do it differently or not, but this is kind of like how we did it. Makes it pretty simple. It's out of the way of everyone. Once the Goliath's dead, I'm just single targeting commandos. So I get my soak, and then we're going to move into the right corner pocket. because then our last person is going to put in the orb. There's going to be another knockback, and then this is pretty much the final phase here, where you're going to have skirmishers and both the bosses. And based on our timings, this is where we bloodlust because we want to burn these skirmishers as much as fast as possible, basically. So I'm just kind of setting up here. I dot everything. I soak to get rid of my bleed, and that's when I pop my Dark Soul, Soul Rot, Dark Lair, and pot everything. And I'm just kind of nuking the bosses here. So when I need to get my soak, I just use my gateway. And obviously, if I was running Dark Pact in this specific kill, that's when I would be using it. Just pretty much every time I needed a soak. And yeah, pretty much at this point, you want to kill skirmishers, but you don't want to overlap too hard. You still don't want massive amounts of wins because you're going to get seismic upheavals, you're going to need soaks. And if you have a bunch of wins happening at once, it's probably just a wipe because someone's going to miss their soak and die. So you can see we're kind of killing skirmishers one by one. I'm just maintaining all my dots on both bosses when I can. This one skirmisher lived a little bit too long. Killed some people because of it, but yeah, that's pretty much the fight. So I'll link the logs to this fight specifically, kind of see like where I was in boss damage, because that's kind of what I focused on in this fight was priority damage. I didn't really care about commandos or skirmishers. You do want to do some damage to them, but if you have a lot of AoE classes, hunters, mages, boomkins, like you shouldn't really need to have like a massive AoE profile to kill them. And single target might be better for you. But if you're progressing on this, kind of test out both builds and see what works for you. You can also test out Siphon Life, see if you like that playstyle. But I felt it was a lot harder to manage, especially with all the mechanics happening. Absolute Corruption just felt way easier. Yeah, so hopefully this is helpful for those progressing this fight or want to get better at this fight. Like I said, it might be different from the way your guild does it. There are so many different ways to kill this boss. There's so many different variations of overlaps and stuff that can happen. But hopefully this brought some value to some. See you guys in the next one.